This is Steve Ridgel, and I try to stay away from politics on my YouTube, my blog. I just don't, my preaching, I just don't talk much about politics because, well, I'm a Jesus follower, so I'm in a whole different nation, and I don't believe the powers of this world are going to solve anything. But I do think Christians have some responsibility, but occasionally I do read a lot of political stuff, and occasionally I really get an insight that says this is what's wrong with our world. So I'm not going to tell you who it was, but I read an article the other day that compiled most of the presidential candidates and gave their views on abortion with some quotes. And I was really struck by this quote. It was somebody that was pro-abortion, but they said it this way: that the right to that the decision about abortion is a woman's choice according to her conscience and in consultation with whatever her conception of God may be. Something to that effect. And I thought that's exactly what's wrong with the world and why we Christians are different. Your conscience and in communion, consultation with the God as you would conceive of him. That's a great God to follow. I'm going to follow a God, but it's going to be a God as I view him, as I see him. But I hear that all the time, even in religious circles. I hear things like this: well, I know God said it, but he couldn't have meant that because my view of God wouldn't let him say that. Or the old thing about the Old Testament God, the New Testament God, because I can't conceive of a God who would do. Or, that's just not how I see the world, so God can't mean that. And so we pick and choose the Bible, pick and choose our God. That goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden, when Satan told Eve, hey, here's the deal. You eat this, you'll be like God, knowing good from evil. Basically, you can be your God. You can decide right and wrong. You can figure out. Man. At some point, you have to decide, there is a God who made me and knows what's right. And so when I see something God says, or I realize that my view of God is not quite in harmony with what he says, the problem's not with what he says. The problem's with me. I want a God that condemns the things I hate. But boy, some of the things God condemns, I'm not sure I hate maybe. So I won't have a God that. Or, I really like this. So when God says we ought to do this, boy, I'm all in about this. But when God doesn't take a stand on something I think's important, well, I don't know if I want to kind of construct a God who thinks like I do, instead of me thinking more like God does. And so I spend a lot of time thinking, man, God said, and I better figure out what this means and how to put this in my life, even if I don't like it or agree with it or understand it. Because here's the deal: at some point you have to figure out, here's God and here's me way, 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 way down. I wouldn't understand what God said. He could explain it to me, and I wouldn't really get it. Sometimes I have to say, you are God, and you know best. And so, in consultation or in conscience with the God as you conceive of him, not much of a God. Well, this is Steve Ridgel, and those are just my thoughts, but God, I know your ways are higher than my ways, and I'm going to try to follow you because you know way better than I do.